Hi, today I am talking about how to make friends with your reality because reality is so rich and juicy with so much information that we can learn from that is going to help us to get everything that we want. So it is important to make friends with our realities, and I want to share with you how to do that. Stick around. Before we get started, I'm Hedley Derenzie. I am a qualified life coach, adult educator, and author. I am also super passionate about the amazing teachings of the law of assumption as originally taught by the wonderful Neville. It is the stories we tell that create our life. So if you want to change your life, you need to know how to change the story. And if you want to create an amazing life, then you need to know how to tell amazing stories. And that's why I'm here, because I want to tell amazing stories for myself. And I also want to help you to do the same. I am available for one-on-one coaching and also email coaching. My details are in the box below. And if you'd like to connect with me on the socials, I am on Instagram and those details are below as well. All right, let's get into it. So today I'm talking about how to make friends with your reality and why we need to make friends with our reality. As I've spoken in some of my other videos, there goes my phone. As I've spoken in my other videos, it's really, the law of assumption is about turning our relationship with reality on its head and flipping it so that we can come from a place of understanding that it is our imagination that creates reality. It is not reality that then gets put into our imagination and we just ruminate on that. It is the other way around. Our imagination creates our consciousness that then creates our reality that is reflected back to us. So why is it important to make friends with our reality? Well, reality, it's our creation. Reality is the expression of our consciousness. It's what is being pushed out and reflected back to us. And therefore it holds great information about the quality and state of our consciousness in the various areas of our life. So for most of us, we have a relationship with reality where we are separate to it, in a sense that we are these individuals walking around and we have some influence perhaps, but really reality is out of our control and we just do our best. We do the best we can with what we get given. And often when reality really kicks up a stink, we can feel very much like a victim to reality, where we don't have much influence over it and it's very much all out of our hands. This is not the case. This is why the law of assumption is so wonderful, because it does put the power back in your hands, and really the true power that we all have, and really our only power, is in our imagination and our consciousness. That is where our true power lies. We don't actually have power over reality in a sense, because reality isn't real. It's just the outpicturing of consciousness. So when we go and try and change reality by going into it and kind of looking outside of us and going out into reality to try and change it, what you might find is that either impossible and nothing happens, or we might be successful and change something for a time, but then it can often go back to the way things were and things get repeated, which is how we find ourselves in certain patterns that get repeated, especially in relationships. I myself can put my hand up about that, where they might be different faces, different names, but essentially the patterns are the same. And at some point you're like, wow, how is this even happening? Well, it is happening in our consciousness. So unless we change the stories that are on program, kind of being programmed in our subconscious, the same shit's just going to get repeated over and over and over, and we're going to find ourselves in certain patterns, whether that's in career, with money, with relationships, with food, with home. Like there's all sorts of, every area of our life we are creating. So we're certainly not into denying. We don't want to deny our reality. Reality is really important because it's showing us the quality of our consciousness in each area of our life. And if you want to know whether you have a high quality or low quality consciousness, then you just need to have a look at your reality. And your reality is like it's a feedback, a source of feedback. And as opposed to being something that we're up against or in a fight with, or a love-hate relationship with. So that is why it's really good to make friends with reality. And the way I approach reality is I really see it as the things that show up in my world, in my life, in my day-to-day experience, even the unfavorable ones, whereas I might have felt like a victim to them in the past. Now I'm able to look at them and think, okay, these are my creations. I don't want to reject any of them, even the unfavorable ones, because I know by rejecting them, I'm only rejecting myself, and I don't want to do that. I certainly used to do that in the past, and this is something I'm not proud of, but certainly with people and relationships. If somebody was showing up in my reality and they were like, let's say they behaved in a certain way that was really hurtful, I would just like delete that person from my life, and that's a horrible thing to do. But that was how I dealt with my hurt around things. I didn't know how else to deal with things. So I would just be, I just sort of like, that person would just be gone from my life. And that is really what I was doing, was rejecting myself. I was rejecting the part of myself that created that in that person. And I missed many wonderful opportunities to learn and to come more into connection with myself and to love myself more by accepting what was showing up in my reality and seeing it as an expression of my consciousness, and understanding that I have the power to change it through the law of assumption by recreating the story and rewriting it and re-envisioning it in my imagination. Of course, I didn't know that. I'm very human. I know that now, so that doesn't happen anymore. And now what I'm about is, even when reality shows me things that are unfavorable that I don't like, and this happened to me recently as well, is that something showed up in my reality that was really unpleasant and uncomfortable, and it was through the vehicle of a particular person. And in the past, I would have like wanted to just get that person out of my life and not have anything to do with them ever again. But I now know that that is not the answer to these situations, because this person is simply showing up as an expression of consciousness, and they are actually trying to help me to get everything that I want in life. And that unless I, look at it as, see this reality as an outpicturing of my consciousness, then I'm missing an amazing opportunity. So I was able to really take that on board and see that actually what this person was reflecting was a story that was still running very deep within me, that I had no idea was still running. And by this person bringing this story to the surface in terms of what they shared with me, I was able to recognize that, yes, this is actually still real. And this is what's preventing me from getting what I want in love and relationships. Because with this story still running, there's no way that I can be in a truly loving, committed relationship. So in fact, as unpleasant and uncomfortable as it was, this person did me an amazing favor, because they brought something to the surface. Then I then had the opportunity to see it, to recognize it, and to then rewrite it. So, sorry, I just got distracted by the wind there. So your reality is an outpicturing of your consciousness. So you don't want to reject it. You don't want to deny it. You don't want to block it. You don't want to turn your back to it. You don't want to ignore it. You really want to do all the opposite of that and be like you would with a friend. Welcome it. Be curious by it. Be interested in it. Ask questions of it. Look towards it. Move closer towards it. Even those really unpleasant situations where you wish that they didn't happen or you didn't want to look at it, even those are where the real gold lies. It's those moments where the ones that are really uncomfortable, where somebody might say something that's really hurtful. What they're actually doing is they're reflecting back something that's within you, where that story is alive and active. And by you ignoring that person or blocking them or pushing them away isn't going to change that story. They're simply, people are reflections, no one to change but self. So you really want to look at your reality and the people in it and the situations in it as expressions of consciousness that you have the opportunity to look at, to acknowledge, and then go, is this favorable or is this unfavorable? And this is your movie. You get to write the script. You get to rewrite it if you don't like the script. And that is the beauty, because while we can change the future, we can create the future with the law of assumption, we can also recreate the past, because all we are doing is shifting our consciousness, changing consciousness to be more aligned with the experiences that we want to have. So whatever it is that you want to experience in your life, you need to come into alignment within your consciousness, using the power of your imagination. And then work with that and work with your reality to see how you're going with that. We're not necessarily looking out to reality to go, is it here yet? Is it here yet? That can be a trap. We can do that. Very human. If we're doing that, it's because we're coming from a place of lack where we don't believe in our power. What we want to do is get into a place of consciousness where we absolutely already have that thing that we want. It's absolutely, there's no question. We already have it in our imagination. Therefore, it's real. And we know that eventually when we persist with that story, it has to get reflected back in our reality. And in the meantime, we can learn quite a lot about ourselves by just being in relationship with our reality and being an observer and being curious as to what our reality is telling us about the quality of our consciousness. So do make friends with your reality, welcome it, be curious by it, look at it, observe it, and then you can, just be in relationship with it rather than fighting against it. And especially if it's something that is unfavorable, that is an opportunity for you to go in and look at the consciousness that created that situation in the first place and then rewrite it using one of the many techniques. I'll do a video on that, actually, all the different techniques that you can use to recreate your reality using the law of assumption. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. Make friends with your reality. It is beautiful. They are your babies. You created it. So love it and welcome it. And I will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.